to Talking with an Addict. My name is Katie. Thank you so much for clicking on my videos. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to go watch the other videos that I have done. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and please send me a message if there's anything that you want me to speak about that you might want a little bit of information about. That's absolutely fine. So today's video, as you can probably tell by the title, is my experience working with the BBC. And obviously for some of my America subscribers and followers that I know I have out there, which is mind-blowing, thank you by the way. But the BBC is basically a British broadcasting channel. It does everything: news, weather, programmes, documentaries, everything. They have podcasts, they have articles, they cover everything. It's British broadcasting, you get it. So about 3-4 weeks ago, I met two gentlemen, one called Jacob and one called Nick, and they came from the BBC down in London up to Yorkshire to meet with myself, a lady called Michelle, and my mentor Michael, and we did a podcast. I will link the podcast down below if it's available by the time this video goes out. I do know they are editing it still, but we did a podcast. To be completely honest, I've never really been fazed by things like this. I've never really been fazed by having to do interviews and be sat in front of a camera purely because this is what I do. So when I got asked to do a podcast, straight away, without a shadow of a doubt, without a second thought, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's raise awareness for addiction. Let's get it out there. Now, obviously, I can only speak my personal experience that I've gone through. Addiction is opiates, obviously painkillers, and energy drinks. They're sort of my addictions, but that doesn't mean that I don't know people that have had other addictions, because I do. But they solely wanted to speak to me and Michelle and Michael, because Michelle, who I've mentioned previously on this channel as well, has, like myself, gone through addiction to pain meds. And me and Michael met in the room before and we were talking about it, and we were getting a little bit nervous, and we were saying, like, what do I say? Have they got any questions I want to ask? You know, what's the structure? Because we didn't really get told what they were going to ask us. We didn't really get advised what they were going to say. So Michelle came in and these two gentlemen came in, and Jacob is actually a stand-up comedian. He does a lot of podcasts for the BBC, and Nick's more like the tech guy. So it was Jacob who was asking us the questions. And to begin with, when we got sat in the room and they set the microphones up and they set the laptop up, we were just doing like level checks, sound checks, to see if, you know, if we were holding the microphone in the right place and everything like that. But we actually started talking, and we went on a bit of a rampage, and we were talking about, you know, what we think about this particular addiction and that particular addiction, and what young people nowadays are taking, and about the media and what's getting put out there, and about artists and things that they portray in their music. So we actually went off on a bit of a tangent for about half an hour, and Jacob basically turned around and said, actually, I think I'm going to use some of that footage in the final cut of the podcast, because you were just being yourself and you were being so genuine and so laid back. So they asked us the basic questions, like, how did your addiction start? Where did it like stem from? What did you do when it was at its worst? Where did you source your tablets from? And for me, obviously, I know all my answers to these questions. I've answered them a lot, and it was very nice to sit there next to Michelle and hear her side of things, because her story is very similar to mine. And it was nice to know that I wasn't alone in that. And we sat there for a good 2 hours just going through everything, our experiences. Michael obviously spoke about how he helps us, how there's not enough support in the UK for people with addictions to medicine, and, you know, what our aims and goals are. Personally, my aims are to set up a support group in my local area for people that are addicted to meds, and make more of a community for people to come to get help, to seek advice, to just sit and talk about it, to let people know where they are and if they think they're addicted and if they're not. And that's what I was trying to say. Like, that's something I feel very passionate about. I want to go around high schools and colleges and speak to young adults and advise them and make them aware of the addiction to painkillers that people don't think a lot about. So yeah, that was one thing that I put across. I know Michelle is wanting to work with me and Michael on the support group as well, which is absolutely fantastic. Now, unfortunately, we couldn't keep the interview going for a very, very long time because they both had to get back down to London. We'd been talking a lot longer than we thought we were going to be, and we basically got everything across that we wanted to. So Jacob does a podcast and it's on the BBC. If you bear with me 1 minute, I will show you the page. So if you go on to the BBC website and you put in Jacob Hawley, it will bring up this list. I don't know if it's going to focus. So it's Jacob Hawley on drugs. He did do a series last year, but that was mainly for your recreational drugs and them sort of drugs that get spoke about in everyday life, whereas this series he's more focusing on pain meds. For example, the latest video that he put up on the 4th of March was on drugs behind bars. The one before that, should I give money to the homeless, because obviously people stereotype the homeless and think it's just going to all go on drugs, which you should never stereotype anybody. So yeah, he does this series and it was absolutely fantastic to meet him, and if you are watching this video, thank you so much, Jacob. You were wonderful, as was Nick. But yeah, that was my experience with them two lovely gentlemen coming up from London to see me and Michelle and Michael, and we had a fantastic chat and a laugh, and we made it very light-hearted, but we was very honest with what we were saying. So that is my experience with the BBC doing a podcast. So last October I got a phone call from Michael and I was asked if I would take part in the news at 6. And the BBC have the news at various different times a day. 6 o'clock is probably the main one when everybody just got home from work, the tea's cooking, they sat down having 5 minutes and my face appeared on the screen. I'm going to make that another video if it's not up already. It will basically just be I was on the news. But yeah, I did that segment. Again, the BBC is based in London, so they came all the way up to me, which I'm very grateful for, because to travel to London for me solely, it probably cost me about £40 just to get there, and obviously £40 back, which is a lot of money. But they have these big groups and teams and that, they have money to do this, so they have money to come up and see me in Yorkshire. So I met them at a local health centre. It was not my local health centre, but it's very close to the Bridge Project. And it was very strange. And I think, again, because I do this and I do YouTube, I was very comfortable in front of the camera. I wasn't really bothered by it at all. We had to do like a false interview sort of thing, where me and Michael were sat opposite each other and we were speaking, and they basically said, oh, Michael, ask Katie what you'd usually ask her, and we just had like a half-an-hour conversation prior to this happening, me and Michael, and I just kept looking at him saying, I don't know what to say to you, I'm just going to make it look like I'm talking to you because I really don't know what to say. And we were both like trying not to laugh at the same time. But that was that. And then this gentleman from Public Health England was there with them, because he was the one who was interviewing me, and he was like the camera where you are now, and he was like sat at the side here. So I was talking to this man, totally trying to ignore this massive lensed camera to the left hand side of me. And when I actually got talking to him, when I got speaking to him, I actually forgot there was anybody else in the room. I just sort of got on with it and just sort of had a general conversation with this gentleman, and that was very quick. Like, we went in there, we set everything up, they put the microphone on, they did all the sound checks, did the cameras, the lighting, everything, sorted all that out, got it all set up. We sat down and spoke for half an hour and it was like bang, that's it, done. I think I was on the news for about 30 seconds, but they did say that the information that I'd provided them would go in the report that I spoke about in one of my first videos on my channel for Public Health England. Now, I don't actually know if anything's happened with that. I don't know if they actually did that because I never got advised. So we finished the interview, and I think within a week it was on the news, and I remember coming home from work and thinking, oh my god, I'm gonna look terrible. I wasn't happy with how I looked, but I never really am. But I remember sitting on the couch and I was hiding behind a pillow. I was literally like peeking over the side of the pillow because I was so nervous. Like, I wasn't nervous to film it, I was more nervous for my face to be on the news and thousands upon thousands of people see me. But I have another YouTube channel which is Katie Lou, which I did mention in my first video, and from that news report I gained about, I think it was like 90 followers, because I didn't have a lot of followers, but I gained about 90 subscribers, 90 followers, whatever you want to call them, and it really did help. But unfortunately, due to my health and everything else that was going on, I wasn't able to post on that channel. So that's partly why I made this dedicated channel for addiction being on here. I have made it aware on my other channel that I have this channel now that is dedicated to addiction, but with working full time and doing everyday life things and trying to sit down and edit these videos that I do actually film, it's very, to me, this channel is a priority. This is a priority to get the word out that, you know, there's help and support there for people with opioid addictions and any addictions, rather than just a vlogging channel that can always be picked up at a different time. Whereas this one needs to be here now, worked on, done. You get what I'm trying to say. And then previous to that, I've sort of gone backwards, but previous to that, I think it was in the September of last year, I will link this down below, I got interviewed by the BBC for part of their BBC Three website. It used to be a channel on TV that did a lot of shows for teenagers and a lot of documentaries and things like that, but it actually got taken off the TV and now it's just an independent sort of channel page on the BBC website. And they wanted to interview me for my addiction, so I had to sit on the phone with this lady and we rung each other backwards and forwards for about 3-4 weeks. She was getting every detail, or I'd ring her and remember something and I'd tell her, and it went backwards and forwards, and eventually it did get released on the BBC Three website and I got a lot of amazing feedback, but I also got some negative feedback. I also got some feedback that wasn't very nice, and I think that anybody who ever does an interview or ever gets asked to do an interview needs to take into consideration that a lot of people are going to be ignorant to this subject because they don't necessarily fully understand it. So you have your people that will sympathise with you and say, you know, you're doing so well, well done, keep going, carry on, and you'll have your other people, which they did say, will comment and say, give me a break, you don't have a clue, stop taking them. If only it was that easy, there wouldn't be millions of people in the world addicted to opiates. But hey ho. I did get a bit of backlash from the news again, people that were ignorant to it and didn't understand it, like, oh, well, just stop taking them, you know, you're doing it to yourself. I get that, I understand, I've said this on my channel God knows how many times. I put the tablets in my mouth, but some responsibility has to lie with the medical professionals, the doctors, the hospitals, the manufacturers. I've said it and I will continue to say this. But yeah, throughout my experience of working with the BBC, I have met nothing but beautiful, kind-hearted, caring, trustworthy, genuine, lovely people. They were so heartfelt and they were like very understanding. I don't have any of the people that I've spoke with or dealt with at the BBC that I could tell them anything, and unless I said it was okay to put out there or print or publish, they wouldn't do so. There was some things that I told the paper and they were like, right, okay, well, we don't necessarily want to put that in for your protection, which is fine. Like, I'm not bothered. I've got 2 YouTube channels, I've got Facebooks, 2 Instagrams, and you know, I'm just trying to raise awareness. But they're very attentive, they're very caring, and I think that when you are doing any sort of subject on the news, especially things like this that have a massive impact on millions and millions of people, that you have to be that way. And I genuinely honestly think that if I had a bad experience in the beginning, I wouldn't have continued to work with them. But I hope for nothing more than to work with the BBC again. I hope that I can meet them again and do more projects with them and help raise awareness and do various different things if it helps with this subject. That sort of wraps up my experience of working with the BBC. Yeah, I've worked with the Guardian newspaper and I'm going to be working with ITV very, very soon, so we'll probably do a video about them too. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and click the little notification bell because I do post weekly. I was posting like 4 or 5 videos a week, and it's basically because I bulk film, so I have loads and loads of videos and I just put them all on at once and I'm like, right, okay, you need to do this properly now. So I'm posting like 2-3 times a week, so please click the notification bell and look forward to my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.